Howdy, my name is Hannah and I'm coming to you from Cheshire Wildlife Trust. I'm here tonight to talk to you about an exciting project that I'm part of, which is called our Dee Estuary. The focus is on the incredible landscapes around the Dee Estuary, and I'm going to be focusing on one of our most important species, which is the Natterjack toad. So just to give you a brief background to the project, we are a 3.5-year Heritage Lottery funded project, and our aim is to really connect the coastal communities around the Dee to the fascinating heritage that they share, and really to inspire those people to kind of take an interest in the amazing and unique habitats and wildlife around here, and feel a sense of ownership and place, you know, and an ability to kind of take action to protect those things for the generations to come. So, what is a Natterjack toad? It is one of the 7 native amphibian species that are found here in the UK. It is slightly smaller than the common toad, but has that similarly kind of warty, bumpy skin. You can tell the difference between the natterjack and the common toad by the darkness of the colour on the back and the warts, and also this very distinctive yellow stripe down their back. By turning around now, you can also see the natterjack toad has these lovely yellow eyes, and if you were looking at a common toad, you'd be seeing more kind of orangey coloured eyes. They also have very short legs, and you tend to see natterjacks kind of running around in the undergrowth. They don't tend to hop and leap like a frog would. Funnily enough, this also makes them somewhat poor swimmers, despite the fact that they will always be found near to water sources. So now I've explained that, you can see here very clearly the differences between a few species. Between the sort of the smaller, darker natterjack and the common toad and the common frog that you might see in your back gardens. So during the winter time, so around about now, these toads will be tucked away under logs or buried down in the mud, staying away from the cold weather. During March and April, they will start to emerge and begin courtship, so we're eagerly awaiting that time now. The males will sing to attract those females, and this is where they get their name, because they have a really loud croak that sounds like they're shouting natterjack. And on a calm evening, around about dusk, you'll be able to hear this croak from around 2 kilometres away. So once a lucky female has been mated, she will spawn and lay a single-stranded string of eggs that contains up to around 7,500 eggs. And from this diagram here, you can see the difference between the common toad spawn at the top and the natterjack at the bottom. So it really helps for us to see when we're trying to identify the spawn from different species during our monitoring, as the natterjack spawn is very long and thin, and the eggs are arranged in quite a singular fashion. So you can see that here has some natterjack spawn in some of our breeding ponds up at the mouth of the Dee Estuary. And some spawning toads as well there for you. Okay. So the tadpoles will hatch within about a week, so it's quite quick, and they can be identified and differentiated by the little white chin patch that they have underneath. So these tadpoles will remain in this pond for around 6 to 8 weeks until they have developed into toadlets. And you can just about see some toadlets buried in the grasses here. So these guys will start to emerge, like I said, around the 8-week point. And at this point, they are extremely vulnerable as they make their way out of the ponds and into the dunes and scrub. So we've had a little chat about the breeding cycle of these toads. So now let's take a little look at where they like to live. So these toads need several key things in their environment. They need bare sand that they can burrow in, hide away and stay safe, and also those nice kind of muddy areas to bury into during the winter. They need pools to breed in. They need these to have nice shallow edges to get in and out, to be reasonably clear of vegetation, although also a nice kind of layer of pondweed for the tadpoles to feed on whilst they're developing in there. They prefer nice still ponds, and tend to prefer coastal areas, although they can be somewhat sensitive to salinity, so there's a bit of a balance that needs to be maintained. They also need lots of nice scrubby habitats that they can run through and catch prey. These toads consume a mix of invertebrate species, which could include a combination of woodlice, worms, and spiders. So here's just a little overview of what could be perfect natterjack habitat here, with the scrubby dunes and the clear areas around the nice sheltered shallow ponds. So the Natterjack toad is protected by law in the UK and in Europe, meaning it is an offence to capture, disturb, harm or trade them in any way. There are also special species licenses that are required in order to work with these special toads. So why are they protected? So this diagram shows you a little overview of the historic populations and the current declining trend. So they are disappearing from these areas, and there are currently around about 50 sites across Britain. So we are really, really lucky that several of these populations are present in and around the Dee Estuary. But unfortunately, the species is in decline across its range currently. So there are a number of reasons why these toads are disappearing. They are very dependent on a very particular habitat type. And as this picture depicts, they also can be quite site faithful. So they will return to their breeding ponds year upon year. So loss or disturbance of these can have a really dramatic effect. So they are very much affected by habitat loss or fragmentation that prevents them from being able to migrate between their ponds. And also the effects of just general human development and encroachment, and disease as well that affects many amphibian species. So our coastlines are in a constant state of change. And if they are left to kind of naturally move and do what they need to do, we would have sand dunes being created and sand dunes disappearing. And there is a kind of natural migration of substrate. And if this were allowed to happen, the toads would just migrate along the coastline with them. Unfortunately, human impact has really affected the way in which coastlines naturally erode and reform. Many of the stable structures that we have built, things like flood defences and just general sort of urbanisation, has really reduced the opportunity for those natural processes to take place. We've also kind of squeezed some of these natural areas tightly between boundaries that we've created. And that really makes it difficult for many species to move between habitats and to survive. So as part of the trust, we're really focusing on protecting this species, and one of our focal points for the Our Dee Estuary project is just here at Red Rocks Nature Reserve, which is just at the mouth of the Dee Estuary there. So the site itself is around 4 hectares in site and is a mixture of established sand dunes at the back there, and embryo dunes that are forming towards the front. There are also large areas of reed bed, which you can see in the centre of the picture here, and some salt marsh that kind of continues out into the water and up along the coast. This area supports a huge number of really specialised flora that can, take advantage of the lovely sandy areas in the dune slacks. And it also supports a huge number of migratory bird species during the spring and summer as they pass through. And if you look just to the sort of centre left of that picture, you'll see a pond with a fence around it, and that is one of our active natterjack breeding ponds just there. So we carry out a huge amount of practical conservation work on this site. We spend a lot of time managing the ponds that are there, ensuring that the reed beds don't encroach too much and are managed properly, and that the pools are kept nice and clean and protected for the toads. So during January last year, we also carried out a project to create some brand new breeding ponds for the natterjacks on this site. These have established incredibly quickly, and we've already had to cut back the reed beds around them this year because it's just spread. But the ponds are really settled in, and the natterjacks have taken up residence in this new area, which is fantastic. And it means that we've created additional habitat to support the hopeful increase in the numbers of this species at this site. Oh, just get one, sorry. So you can see the finished ponds here, and the fact that we put these fences around them as well is just to add another layer of protection. It keeps out some of the sort of larger predators like foxes and things, but also protects from people and dogs who might be walking in the area. So it just creates a bit of a safe haven for the toads, particularly when the toadlets are leaving the ponds there. There's a few of our volunteers out kind of managing the pools, so we do a lot of this by hand during the winter outside of the breeding season. We'll get in, clear vegetation where it's taken over, and make sure that the habitat is in a suitable condition for the toads. We also monitor these ponds throughout the summer season, so from April over the next few months. So we're just kind of starting to gear up towards this now. We will keep check on the ponds several times a week, monitoring for any new spawn and any tadpoles, and we tend to keep track of how many there are as well. So you can see here then the sites that we monitor and record very carefully. And this helps us to kind of know where the toads are, where they're occurring, where they're breeding, and make informed decisions about how to manage these areas. So you can see here some of the spawn strings that are in the pond there, and we use these bamboo canes to help us locate these and keep an eye on how they're doing. There's some tadpoles as well. And then as the toadlets emerge, we keep track of that. And finally, any adults that we come across, we record as well. All of the data that's collected through our monitoring is shared with ARC, who are the Amphibian and Reptile Conservation organisation, and they monitor populations of natterjacks all around the country. So we do rely on a team of really dedicated practical and citizen science volunteers to manage this habitat and monitor our toads. They're a real asset to us, and we certainly couldn't do it without them. We are a 3-person team, so we take all the help we can get. And it's just so great to see so many people coming out and really being enthused about the wildlife on their local patch. So if you are interested at all, please get in touch. I will pop this email address in the chat for you as well. So yes, just always happy to chat. So thank you everyone for listening. Appreciate that.